Hey everybody, it's Ben, and I think I have a new favorite author with William Gass. Well, favorite top whatever ish. By the way, check out my check out the Beyond Zero podcast to hear my top 10 for now. But anyway, this is Gass's debut novel, and it is amazing. It is the love child between Joyce Ulysses and Faulkner. Just bam! It's like so the plot of the novel is just it's pretty much about a family in rural America, maybe like in the 1800s, early 1900s maybe, and just like this guy named Omensetter who has a lot of luck and he just gets really lucky in his life and people really like him, and his relationship with the antagonist, this Nick Force of Jericho Thurber, Jericho whatever, the priest of the town, and just just that dude hating him and just wanted to bang his wife so bad and play with her titties. And so the really cool thing about this novel, and after reading The Disconnected, I'm really appreciating this a lot more in these kind of novels, is that it's segmented into three parts. Um, it's the flash forward with this guy like recounting like a swap meet and recounting Olmsted and how he's an important part of the city and everything like that. And then he goes to Olmsted's first experience setting roots with his family in the city. And then the novel focuses on Reverend Ferber and his hatred, his fervor for Olmsted. And and much like The Disconnected, where it's like it keeps changing up styles and linguistic games throughout the novel and it doesn't repeat itself, kind of like Hog in a way also. It really just makes the novel's layout very clear in my head and makes it very interesting. I really appreciate that. So many novels sometimes they can be beautiful, but like kind of like Vitz, it was just kind of the same note throughout, a very beautiful note, but it gets tiring after a while. And to see this in a 300-page book just switch it up so much, it reminds me of my favorite post-hardcore songs, where they'd be these big expansive things that would change on the fly. And sure, it may not be perfect, but it's and a bit messy, but I appreciate that a lot more. So you have passages in here where it's just like stream of consciousness, and it reaches like the level of Ulysses in some passages. But he does something really different. It's a lot more sing-songy, and I've heard that before, where it's a very lyrical quality, and I'd absolutely say that very lyrical. You could almost sing the passages, and I haven't seen something like that to this extent in a novel like this. And it just gives a pace and a rhythm to the prose that just keeps you engaged. So even though you might have a little bit of a tough time keeping up with parts, it just keeps that beat to it, and you're just able to follow it so well. And the characterizations in this novel are just great. Like Olmstetter, I really get a sense of him. I really get a sense of his wife, Reverend Ferber, and like just the priest who he just wants to bang Olmstetter's wife so bad. He's just so jealous of that. He's just so jealous by people like Olmstetter more than him. And the extent he goes to get at Olmstetter, where he tries to frame a hanging, suicide hanging on Olmstetter, saying that, hey, Olmstetter killed him. This is the guy he pays rent to, and turn the town against him, and eventually admitting it just because he hates Olmstetter so much. And there was this, I wish it was like expanded upon, just because it would have been a really good scene to expand on. Ferber rapes a woman and says like, my name is Olmstetter, and tries to imitate his voice, and then later gives her counsel to that woman, like religious counsel how to get past it. Like he's just a complete bastard. But that's like more at the tail end of one chapter. I wish that was expanded more onto the novel, but what we get here is still just absolutely brilliant. I love how it's a period piece. The characters still cuss, and not like in a modern sense, but like sometimes the period pieces they have this way of speaking, and it just feels so disconnected from us. But like it feels like these are just humans in our day and age, just with a filter of like 1800s English speak over them, and they're just so relatable. Like how they cuss, how they don't like each other, how they get into quips, how the doctor's talking about like it's like, oh yeah, I saw a boy who got his legs ran over by a wagon and I had to cut him off. And the people are like, Jesus, doc, I don't want to hear this. We have all these beautiful, fun, jovial prose throughout the novel, set next to this sadness as well. And you could really see that unrest with like the scene with the fox in the well. how it's trapped there, and they're debating like, okay, well, do we just board it up and let the fox die, or do we shoot it? And just the fox's eyes just staring back up, and that continual image of the fox really gets at the novel, that underlying tension with the fervor, and like the underlying, like, yeah, this seems like a beautiful American town, but there's some sadness, there's some darkness to this town as well. And at the end of the novel, Omensetter's baby gets sick, and this is after he goes to the Reverend to explain, like, hey, I found Henry, I found the body, like, let's get on. He's like, I think you did it, man. It's like, no. People get on Omensetter, like, dude, your baby's dying. Why are you looking for this dead body? Like, this is gonna be on your conscience, and I hope it is. And the villagers are just mad at him. They're seeing him do this, and then they start to believe the Reverend, like, I think this bastard killed Henry. That doesn't make any sense. He has his rent in his hand, and he's in a tree and everything. And it's just like they're not being super rational, and neither is Omensetter. And it's the only time in the novel where Omensetter references his own luck when he's trying to console his wife about the dying baby. Like, hey, like, don't worry, my luck is gonna pull us through. And it's in the moment most we feel like the child is going to die. It eventually pulls through, and Omensetter is lucky, and he gets absolved of the accusations against him killing Henry. But in that moment, it's kind of like the fox thing as well. We had this, beautiful little cottage near a lake, and there was this dying fox in a well, and it's just really gas underlining. Yeah, things are kind of horrible. When you really look at it, there's always gonna be that underlying level of like darkness to things, no matter how pastoral or idealistic it may become. And that's what I think makes the book so beautiful, because it has like the harshness of Faulkner and everything like that, but it does have all that idealistic, beautiful prose, and you just fall in love with the scenery, like especially some of the early stuff where he's thinking about the world map, or the swap meet, the flea market, and everything. Just beautiful, beautiful passages throughout it, and all the characters, this joyous community, but again, the darkness underneath, and again, it all tying back to the Reverend as well. Now, the ending, I will say, was a little disappointing, because I was hoping, even though it's segmented, I like that, it didn't really tie together, and the ending was just like really fast. And I was like, oh, that's kind of strange. It's just kind of wrapping up. Like the doctor sees the kid, and then a flash forward to like, yeah, the baby's fine, and the Reverend just kind of like, whatever. It's like, okay, what? And then there's an afterword, and the afterword says like, in a bit of unluckiness, the manuscript got stolen, the last chapter. And Guy's like, fuck. So he had to rewrite the last chapter. Wikipedia says the whole book was rewritten, but by Gass's words, it sounds like, I was working on the last chapter. It might have been like the length of a sneeze. It got stolen. So it sounds more like the last chapter was just stolen. And he had to rewrite it. And it's very unfortunate. This book, I wish it did have a bit of a better ending. However, from what we got with this book, it accomplishes so much more than what other authors are really setting out to do there. And to be honest, even with this like gimped ending, this book is so worth your time. All the different games he plays with the prose, like when the doctor's saying like the ABCs and giving all these different limericks, with the Reverend and a stream of conscience with this lyrical thought process and everything, and just how he doesn't use punctuation for dialogue, and the characters are just going back and forth with each other. There's so much diversity within these 300 pages that it's just like a masterclass of like linguistic games. And I've seen it in the Ulysses, I've seen it in The Disconnected. I haven't seen it in such a small book before, and I appreciate it so much. So if there's ever a chapter you're not totally digging, you're gonna get to another chapter next also that you might like a lot more. So with that, I absolutely recommend Omensetter's Luck. I'm very excited to read more Gas. I might read all his novels after this. He doesn't have a big bibliography, which is pretty nice, but like definitely a masterclass writer. Just can tell from this book alone. And it's his debut novel. So that's Omensetter's Luck by William Glass. 100% recommend.